Okay, so we're open to the first part. And as you can see, I've had this book for a while already. It's already fallen apart, and it's even got that old book smell. Of all the books that I've had, I've taken this with me the most, and I've read this one the most. But now, instead of doing this on my own, it's time to do this in front of the world, and ultimately teach it to the world once we get our own success. Okay, so before we get started, a little bit more about me. As Corey Anderson, my highest aspiration is to be a life coach, one of the greatest life coaches in the world. Okay, who doesn't want to be the greatest at what they do? You viewer, whether you're playing basketball, football, baseball, whatever professional sport, whether you're a family man, a father, you want to be the best dad that you can be. Whether it's at work, you want to be the best manager, coworker, anything. You want to be the best at what it is that you do. So you're providing value to people and providing value to your society, because the more value you bring to the table, the more people are going to want to work with you, the more people are going to want to be with you, and ultimately the more God will bless you in your life, because you're being that blessing to other people. Now, the last thing we went over was both the introduction and the forward, and what we learned and what we went over that we're going to learn in this book is the power of the mind, the power of consciousness. That it's not anything physical that gets us to where we want to go. I mean, of course, if you're an athlete and you have that heredity to where you're just naturally more stronger, more aesthetic, more any of that physically, you're obviously going to have an advantage when it comes to that area of life. But ultimately, regardless of how athletic or how strong your heredity is in that physical aspect, there's a whole mental aspect of it as well that's that much more important, because you could be extremely strong physically but mentally, spiritually not be as strong, and that's going to be a huge detriment. And we're here to go over our spiritual strength, our mental strength, which is going to affect our physical actions, our physical being. Okay, well, mind you, this doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to become a Superman physically by learning to do or strengthening your mind and your spirit. But what it will mean is that your strength in your character, the conduct in which you conduct yourself, is going to be that much stronger, which is going to help you get even further along in whatever endeavor it is that you're doing. So this book is going to teach us natural laws. It's going to teach us universal laws. We know gravity is a natural law. Whether I believe in gravity or not, we know gravity works, because if I drop my key, gravity pulls it down. It's a natural law. It's bigger than I am. That's what we're going to learn about the law of attraction. The law of attraction is stronger than the law of gravity. We learned this in quantum physics too. And like I said, we're going to go over that as we move along, once we get onto the subject of quantum physics. And this book is also going to give us tools, training tools, because it's not just about reading the information but applying it. So we're going to learn how to apply the wisdom that we're getting from this program, so we can become a more stronger and powerful personality, more of a magnetic personality, which is exactly what's going to help enable us to not only strengthen our walk with God, the universal mind, but also to help us create the movement which we've always wanted to create for the longest time, a movement of men of God, a movement of entrepreneurs, a movement of leaders, a movement of just the greatest human beings, just the greatest example of humans that mankind can follow. Because ultimately it's all about expanding consciousness and moving man forward. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and continue, because we're already about to be 5 minutes in. So introduction to part 1 of the Master Key System. It is my privilege to enclose here part 1 of the Master Key System. Would you bring into your life more power? Get the power consciousness. More health? Get the health consciousness. More happiness? Get the happiness consciousness. Live the spirit of these things until they become yours by right. It will then become impossible to keep them from you. The things of the world are fluid to a power within man by which he rules them. So what is he saying? Since we're consciousness, we have to, in order to get power, health, more abundance, we have to build that within our consciousness. We have to condition our spirit to be that way. And once we're conditioned to be that internally, there's nothing that can keep it away from us. Because he says, what? The things of the world are fluid to a power within man. That what we're creating and experiencing in the world is going to be dependent upon the fluidity of our own internal power, our spiritual condition. You need not acquire this power. You already have it. But you want to understand it. You want to use it. You want to control it. You want to impregnate yourself with it so that you can go forward and carry the world before you. Day by day, as you go on, as you gain momentum, as your inspiration deepens, as your plans crystallize, as you gain understanding, you will come to realize that this world is no dead pile of stones and timber, but that it is a living thing. It is made up of the beating hearts of humanity. It is a thing of life and beauty. It is evident that it requires understanding to work with material of this description, but those who come into this understanding are inspired by a new light, a new force. They gain confidence and greater power each day. They realize their hopes and their dreams come true. Life has a deeper, fuller, clearer meaning than before. And now, part 1. That much gathers more is true on every plane of existence, and that loss leads to greater loss is equally true. Mind is creative, and conditions, environment, and all experiences in life are the result of our habitual or predominant mental attitude. The attitude of mind necessarily depends upon what we think. Therefore, the secret of all power, all achievement, and all possession depends upon our method of thinking. And eventually we're going to go together through Think and Grow Rich, because it's all about our attitude of mind. A successful attitude is what brings about and conjures success. An attitude of defeat brings about more defeat. So this is true because we must be before we can do, and we are what we think about. And we can do only to the extent which we are, and what we are depends upon what we think. We cannot express powers that we do not possess. The only way by which we may secure possession of power is to become conscious of power, and we can never become conscious of power until we learn that all power is from within. There is a world within, a world of thought and feeling and power, of light and life and beauty, and, although invisible, its forces are mighty. The world within is governed by mind. When we discover this world, we shall find the solution for every problem, the cause for every effect. And since the world within is subject to our control, all laws of power and possession are also within our control. The world without is a reflection of the world within. What appears without is what has been found within. In the world within may be found infinite wisdom, infinite power, infinite supply of all that is necessary, waiting for unfoldment, development, and expression. So what did he just tell us right there? That our mind, since the substance of the universe itself is made inside and out of the substance of mind, or the essence of mind, we have the ability to condition our mind to be whatever it is that we want to be. Because this power is the power for every cause, or for every effect. It is the cause of every effect. And we have control over this power by simply directing our thoughts along specific lines. This world without is a reflection of the world within. What appears without is what has been found within. In the world within may be found infinite wisdom, infinite power, an infinite supply of all that is necessary, waiting for unfoldment, development, and expression. If we recognize these potentialities in the world within, they will take form in the world without. Harmony in the world within will be reflected in the world without by harmonious conditions, agreeable surroundings, the best of everything. It is the foundation of health and a necessary essential to all greatness, all power, all attainment, all achievement, and all success. Harmony in the world within means the ability to control our thoughts and to determine for ourselves how any experience is to affect us. Harmony in the world within results in optimism and affluence. Affluence within results in affluence without. The world without reflects the circumstances and conditions of the consciousness within. If we find wisdom in the world within, we shall have the understanding to discern the marvelous possibilities that are latent in this world within. Now, latent means dormant, that exist inside of us. And we shall be given the power to make these possibilities manifest in the world without. Now, as he says, it is the recognition of the power within us that opens that doorway for us to manifest that character, that being, that force, and bringing it into reality. As we become conscious of the wisdom in the world within, we mentally take possession of this wisdom, and by taking mental possession, we come into actual possession of the power and wisdom necessary to bring into manifestation the essentials necessary for our most complete and harmonious development. Now that makes sense right there too, because how could we possibly do something that we are not conscious of doing yet? If you want to make, let's say, a chocolate cake, you have to know in consciousness how to make that chocolate cake. Because there is no way you'll be able to make that chocolate cake unless your thoughts lead you to the making of that cake. You have to first think about it. Now our thoughts, we have to learn, which is what we're here doing, with learning the power of mind and how to control this power to bring about and influence the circumstances of our life. We'll be able to take that and as we said, move our own consciousness upon the thing that we desire to do and to be. Because we'll be developing and unfolding that power within us. The world within is the practical world in which the men and women of power generate courage, hope, enthusiasm, confidence, trust, and faith, by which they are given the fine intelligence to see the vision and the practical skill to make the vision real. Life is an unfoldment, not an accretion. Meaning that life unfolds for us. It is not something that just happens to us, but it is an unfoldment. It is an experience that we are one with. We're not only going through the things in life under any type of it's not what would you call it? It's not just, things don't just happen without a reason for happening. There's a reason for everything, and for every experience we meet is either because we manifested that experience or somebody else has manifested it for us, and we just caught ourselves into somebody else's experience, because ultimately God, the infinite mind, is in control even of where we're at. Because I know the things that have happened to me that I didn't want happening to me. It was a learning experience for me, and it helped me ultimately to move forward in the next level of my life. And as I reflected on that, I see how exactly that experience was supposed to happen. the unfoldment for us, because all things do work together for our good. The Book of Life tells us that. And what comes to us in the world without is what we already possess in the world within. All possession is based on consciousness. All gain is the result of an accumulative consciousness, and all loss is the result of a scattering consciousness. So ultimately, doing this program, we're going to accumulate more of our own mental power. We're going to become more of a conscious individual. And as long as we keep working the program and doing these tools, we're not going to lose or scatter our consciousness. Mental efficiency is contingent upon harmony, meaning that we have to have harmony within ourselves. Discord means confusion. Therefore, he who would acquire power must be in harmony with natural law. We are related to the world without by the objective mind. The brain is the organ of this mind, and the cerebrospinal system of nerves puts us in conscious communication with every part of the body. Now, we do have our NASM book too. We're going to be going over NASM, and NASM also explains the different sections of our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system, because our conscious mind and our physical ability to move our fingers is all related to their skeletal muscular system in our brain and central nervous system, while our subconscious mind, which is our heart beats on its own, our hair grows on its own, our nails grow on their own. All this happens outside of the power of our own conscious thinking, because we don't have to think about these things. There's a power inside of us, which we know as the power of God within us, that makes this happen for us. Now, it's the two different corresponding centers in our nervous system, and we're going to learn more about that and talk more about it as we move along. We need to know this stuff as a 7. The result is, okay, I'm moving too fast. This system of nerves, as he mentioned, the central nervous system responds to every sensation of light, heat, odor, sound, and taste. When this mind thinks correctly, when it understands the truth, when the thoughts sent through the cerebrospinal nervous system to the body are constructive, these sensations are pleasant, harmonious. The result is that we build strength, vitality, and all constructive forces into our body. But it is through this same objective mind that all distress, sickness, lack, limitation, and every form of discord and inharmony is admitted to our lives. It is therefore through the objective mind, by wrong thinking, that we are related to all destructive forces. And we're going to be given the power to control and guard our mind from any negative external source, and to only bring in positive information that is constructive for us to move forward. Because half the things out there in the world are detrimental for us anyway. You know, the music is the biggest detriment for us. We'll go over more of that later on too. We are related to the world within by the subconscious mind. The solar plexus is the organ of this mind. Now, mind you, the solar plexus isn't an actual organ. What he means by this, as it being the organ of the mind, is that it's the center. It's a major nerve ganglia, and it's located in the back of the stomach. And it's a major nerve ganglia that most of the energy of the body is radiated out from. The sympathetic system of nerves presides over all subjective sensations, such as joy, fear, love, emotion, respiration, imagination, and all other subconscious phenomena. It is through the subconscious that we are connected with the universal mind and brought into relation with the infinite constructive forces of the universe. And The subjective mind, the subconscious mind, is also our emotional body. And it's the connecting force between us and the universal mind. As we learn in this program when it comes to manifestation, this program is going to teach us how to be able to create that mental picture of exactly what it is that we want and to see it so clearly. And it's also going to give us the ability to create the emotion as if we're already living that experience. Because they say we need to feel it to be true. And it's through the act of feeling it that's going to cause the mental image, because we have to get emotionally involved in the mental picture that we are imagining and experiencing. And also, adding on top of that, emotion is more of a denser, stronger vibration than just pure thought and mental picturing. It is the coordination of these two centers of our being and the understanding of their functions which is the great secret of life. With this knowledge, we can bring the objective and subjective minds into conscious cooperation, and thus coordinate the finite and the infinite. Our future is entirely within our own control. It is not at the mercy of any capricious or uncertain external power. All agree that there is but one principle or consciousness pervading the entire universe, occupying all space, and being essentially the same in kind at every point of its presence. It is all-powerful. Now this itself is the source, the infinite mind of God, or the universal spirit. It is all-powerful, all wisdom, and always present. All thoughts and things are within itself. It is all in all. And since God is one, we are all one with God. There is but one consciousness in the universe able to think, and when it thinks, its thoughts become objective things to it. And that's manifestation, whatever it is that we're thinking, since consciousness is one, and you and I are individual representations of the one infinite mind. We ourselves are like individual channels, and when we think upon something, we're essentially asking the great one, the great I am, and telling it that that's exactly what it is that we want to experience. And that's where the power of choice comes into play, and everything. That's like a whole nother level of philosophy and learning. And let's continue. And when it thinks, its thoughts become objective things to it, as this consciousness is omnipresent. Omnipresent meaning that it's everywhere. It must be present within every individual. Each individual must be a manifestation of that omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent consciousness. As there is only one consciousness in the universe that is able to think, it necessarily follows that your consciousness is identical with the universal consciousness. Or, in other words, all mind is one mind. There is no dodging this conclusion. And as we learn from the Book of Life, being created in the image and likeness of the universal spirit of God, our mind is identical and of the same substance and of the same power as the infinite mind or God. Because what did Jesus really tell us and teach us? That we all have the power of God within us. And as we learn that God is the infinite mind and spirit, the Father of all things, and it's only one, that everything is one and connected, you and I essentially are individual, like God-men. Let's keep reading. The consciousness that focuses in your brain cells is the same consciousness which focuses in the brain cells of every other individual. Each individual is but the individualization of the universal, the cosmic mind. Now, that's a very interesting thought, because I want to bring this to your attention. I know for a fact that you've thought of somebody and you ended up running into them, or they ended up calling you. You sent out that vibration into the universal mind, and the power of the universe, being one, move things in accordance and set you in a situation or circumstance, as well as the other individual that you thought about, and made that a reality. You ran into that person, or you talked to that person, or maybe you thought of a name and you ended up running into somebody that had that name. Excuse me. And here's another one. Maybe you've been with somebody and you ended up saying something, or they said something, and you were like, hey, I was just thinking that. Because thought, the power of thought, is an actual thing. It's mind, it's force, it's power. And this is spirituality. This is what spirituality is, and the power that the individual mind has on the influence of its own world. Each individual, each individual is but the individualization of the universal, the cosmic mind. The universal mind is static or potential energy. It simply is. It can manifest only through the individual, and the individual can manifest only through the universal. They are one. Now, one thing I would like to say is that this universal mind, even though it may be static or just potential energy, it is infinite in what it does. Because I know for a fact that when I try to manifest something, sometimes that manifestation doesn't always work, because the choice of what the other person, anyone else involved, they have to make the choice too. But one thing I could say is that when I pray to God, to have God do something for me, which is entirely out of my power, God makes a way where there appears to be no way. He'll do that for you. So although he says this mind is static or just potential energy, yeah, it may simply just be there, but it is not just simply there. It thinks for itself too. It's the power which sustains and holds all things and moves everything within itself. And it can do for us what we ourselves cannot do for ourselves, because we are still humans and we are still limited by our own by the content of our own character, because there is always more to learn. This mind knows everything, but the human being still has to learn. It can manifest only through the individual, and the individual can manifest only through the universal. They are one. So the ability of the individual to think is his ability to act on the universal and bring it into manifestation. Human consciousness consists only in the ability of man to think. Mind in itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy, from which arises the activity called thought. And we know that that's what consciousness is, awareness, because our highest and most natural state of being is a place beyond thought. It is a place beyond mental picturing. It is just pure awareness. And out of this awareness arises the activity called thought. And thought is the dynamic phase of mind. So mind, consciousness, and motion produces the activity of thinking. And since mind is creative, thought is creative too. So by applying the creative power of thought towards a constructive purpose, the mind is going to learn and bring about the necessary conditions for the achievement of that purpose. Mind is static energy. Thought is dynamic energy, the two phases of the same thing. Thought is therefore the vibratory force formed by converting static mind into a dynamic mind. And again, everything is in vibration. We'll go through that. Not only will this program teach us that, but quantum physics shows us that too by the wave-particle duality of all nature. as the sum of all attributes are contained in the universal mind. So every characteristic available to man exists within the universal mind. And since the universal mind is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, these attributes must be present at all times in their potential form in every individual. Right. So you have within you, we have within us the potential, the ability to have courage, to be just, to be a great leader, to be a life coach, to be a great pastor, to be a great anything. We have it within us. These attributes exist within us in their potential state because all characteristics are present within the universal mind. And since the universal mind is within us, we ourselves, as the conscious portion, have to embody that image, that thought, that ideal, and manifest and bring it, develop it outside of us. So therefore, since these attributes are within us, when the individual thinks, the thought is compelled by its nature to embody itself in an objectivity or condition which will correspond with its origin. Okay, so what does that statement mean? Okay, so when the individual thinks, the thought of the individual, since it's made of consciousness, of mind stuff, it is compelled by its nature to embody itself in an objectivity or condition. So we will meet experiences and circumstances in our life that correspond with our own method of thinking, with our own nature of thought. Now it's interesting that he says that too, because again, quantum physics shows that electrons, which fill all space, take on the form of which the observer is observing them to be in. Corey, we're going to be one of the greatest life coaches that ever existed. We're going to be one of the greatest. And of course, we are told to already believe that we are the greatest. I am the greatest life coach that can exist as Corey Anderson because I am my own individual. Nobody else can be me. Nobody else can do me. Nobody else can walk, talk, or think like me because I am me and they are them. Will you be able to reach everybody? No. But you'll be able to reach that person, help that person that can reach that other person. Every thought, therefore, is a cause, and every condition an effect. For this reason, it is absolutely essential that you control your thoughts, so as to bring forth only desirable conditions. All power is from within, and is absolutely under your control. It comes through exact knowledge, and by the voluntary exercises of exact principles. It should be plain that when you acquire a thorough understanding of this law and are able to control your thought processes, you can apply it to any condition. In other words, you will have come into a conscious cooperation with omnipotent law, which is the fundamental basis of all things. The universal mind is the life principle of every atom which is in existence. Every atom is continually striving to manifest more life. All are intelligent, and all are seeking to carry out the purpose for which they were created. A majority of mankind lives in the world without. Few have found the world within, and yet it is the world within that makes the world without. It is therefore creative, and everything which you find in your world without has been created by you in the world within. This system will bring you into a realization of power, which will be yours when you understand this relation between the world without and the world within. The world within is the cause, and the world without the effect. To change the effect, you must change the cause. You must change yourself. You will at once see that this is a radically new and different idea. Most men try to change effects by working with effects. They fail to see that this is simply changing one form of distress for another. To remove discord, we must remove the cause. We must change our thinking. And this cause can only be found in the world within. All growth is from within. This is evident in all nature. Every plant, every animal, every human is a living testimony to this great law. And the error of the ages is in looking for strength or power from without. The world within is the universal fountain of supply, and the world without is the outlet to the stream. Our ability to receive depends upon our recognition of this universal fountain, this infinite energy of which each individual is an outlet, and so is one with every other individual. Recognition is a mental process. Mental action is therefore the interaction of the individual upon the universal mind. And as the universal mind is the intelligence which pervades all space and animates all living things, this mental action and reaction is the law of causation. But the principle of causation does not obtain in the individual, but in the universal mind. So what does he say right there? That it is not the individual himself which is really setting the law in motion. We set the law in motion, but it's the universal mind which carries this law out. Because I know when I try to force things to happen, they don't exactly happen the way you would like them to. We have to let it flow and let it happen in the time that the universe allows it to happen. Okay. Animates this mental action is the law of causation, but the principle of causation does not obtain in the individual but in the universal mind. It is not an objective faculty, but a subjective process. It's an inner process, and the results are seen in an infinite variety of conditions and experiences. So learning to guard our mind from any type of negative external condition, and learning not to let any type of condition that doesn't seem pleasing to the eye, we cannot let affect the inner world. We cannot allow it to affect our thoughts or our emotions. For knowing this information, our consciousness is always going to be looking within, looking at strength and power from within. Because as the internal world influences the external world, this is how we're going to be a great and powerful personality. By learning to not let the external world influence our own internal world, but always being the influence of the external world by having a strong, solid internal world. In order to express life, there must be mind. Nothing can exist without mind. Everything which exists is some manifestation of this one basic substance from which and by which all things have been created. Excuse me. And are continually being recreated. We live in a fathomless sea of plastic mind substance. God. Now God's not in here, God is in here, but that wasn't the next word. But ultimately, this plastic mind substance is the mind of God. This substance is ever alive and active. It is sensitive to the highest degree. It takes form according to the mental demand. Thought forms the mold or matrix from which the substance expresses. Remember that it is in the application alone that the value consists, and that a practical understanding of this law will substitute abundance for poverty, wisdom for ignorance, harmony for discord, and freedom for tyranny. And certainly there can be no greater blessing than these from a material and social standpoint. Now make the application. So now we're going to go through our first training in this program. Select a room where you can be alone and undisturbed. Sit erect, comfortably, but do not lounge. Let your thoughts roam where they will, but be perfectly still for from 15 minutes to half an hour. Continue this for 3 or 4 days or for a week until you secure full control of your physical being. Many will find this extremely difficult. Others will conquer with ease. But it is absolutely essential to secure complete control of the body before you are ready to progress. Next week you will receive instructions for the next step. In the meantime, you must have mastered this one. Okay. So, we're going to go through this section every day for the next week, reading it and rereading it until we become one with it, until we really understand the information and knowing it like the back of our mind, the back of our hand, the back of anything. Because ultimately this is the most important thing for us to have right now, along with the Word of God, because this process is going to help you. It's going to help you, Corey, to be the best possible version that you can be, so you can make a way. God will make that way for you, through you, and for every other person watching this. So, this week, we're going to secure complete control of the body. It may take a little bit longer, but as long as we're diligent and disciplined, we will make it happen, and we will be ready for the next step. If you made it to the end of this video with me, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You have a purpose too. And let's go out there and achieve our purpose. It is 2:13 in the morning. Our battery's almost dead. And we still have our other videos to upload because they have been taking a minute. So with that being said, we have our own work to do in the meantime. We're going to be solidifying more of what the 7 is and putting it together and writing it down on paper. Because there is a lot. There's going to be a lot to it, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So that being said, I'll see you on the other side of the galaxy.